Good evening and welcome to day 53 of 100 Days of Sewing with Queenie Quilts. I'm Catherine Wilson, your host. It is August the 4th, I think. Yes, it's August the 4th. Today we're going to talk about my favorite block. So I have an ongoing love affair with this block, which sounds really weird, but anyway, it's this one. The 9-patch, the lowly 9-patch that you can do a million things with. So I'm going to talk about how to make it. I'm not going to talk about speed making of it, so making ones that are identical. I'm really going to talk about making scrappy ones today. I'm sure we'll come back to speed making them at some point later. But this is the first in a series of blocks, kind of as a tutorial on how to make a couple things. So I'm going to flip you guys around so you can actually view it from above and see what I'm working on the mat and see exactly what I'm doing. So I'm going to do that, and I'll meet you back here in a little bit to say goodnight. Okay, so we are at my cutting table. I have in front of me 2.5-inch strips. So these are leftovers from a jelly roll. And I have them stacked on top of each other. So you just want to make sure you get them stacked nice and straight. And these are 2.5-inch strips. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to square off this edge over on the left. So I am right-handed. So I'm going to square off on this side. And to do that, I use a 2-ruler method. So I'm going to line up this black line with the edge of this fabric here. So this line right here with the edge of my fabrics. And then I'm going to place this one, butt it up against it, and then I'm going to pull this one away and trim this off. And that just makes sure that this is a nice 90-degree angle. I know a lot of us like to think that our mat is a great way to measure, but it's really not. You really want something that has nice, clean measurements. And that's one of the reasons this is a ruler. It's not very popular. I don't think it's actually even made anymore. But it's one that I really like because it does not have a lot of lines. So when I'm cutting solid numbers, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or halves, 1.5, 2.5, 3.5, it's great for cutting those because it doesn't have a lot of extra lines. Whereas ones like these, which I do love this ruler, this is an Omnigrid, as well as the Creative Grid ones, which are what most of my rulers are, they just have too many lines, too many things in the in your vision. So whenever possible, I like to use one that has less lines, especially for beginners. So I'm going to line it up on the 2.5-inch mark. So right here, 2 and 3. So this one is the 2.5. And I'm gonna cut. Now, I know just because of what I have here in this pile, I'm gonna need 2 cuts because I'm cutting each one of these twice. So I do have 3 fabrics in my stack. And I'll show you those in just a minute. So, I have 2 black, 2 white, and then I have just a single layer of this black that has a silver print on it. So for this purpose, I'm going to put a black and then a white and a black. And then I'm going to put this silver one in the middle and then a white on each side. This is a little hard to tell. It's a kind of a it's a print that has handwriting on it, but it's sort of faded in some places and sometimes a little hard to tell which side is the correct side of the fabric. So, and then I'm going to put these that have the scroll pattern back in the corners. So this is how I'm going to lay them out, and I would lay it out like this first. Once I've got it laid out and I know how it's going to work, I'm going to flip each one of these over like that and sew on the 1/4 inch right here. So I would do that all the way down. Okay. And then press them to the dark, towards the dark. So, and then do the same thing. So once these two are as one unit, then I would come and add that one over. So eventually you'll end up with 3 lines worth of, so they end up like this, and like this, and like that. Okay. Now at this point, they're no longer square because you've taken off these seam allowances, but these on the top and bottom remain. So, and then I would do the same thing. Because you've pressed towards the dark, these seams right here will nest. And then once you've sewn those two together, I would do the same thing with that one. And that then gives you this guy right here. Okay, when it has all of its seam allowances out. So this started with a 2.5 inch squares, and you end up with a 6.5 inch block, which will be 6 inch once you take the seam allowances off the edges as you sew it into the quilt. The reason I love this block is because of its versatility. It makes a great base for a bunch of different things. It's the base of what becomes an Irish chain quilt. It is the base of what becomes a Bergonia surrounded block. So it's just, it has great uses as a basis when quilting. I use it all the time. I use it in multiple sizes. So the one I showed you earlier is this one right here. So these started out as 1.5. They will be, right now they're 1.25. This one is 1 inch. It will end up being a 3.5 inch unfinished and 3 inch finished. So it's roughly 1/4 of the size of this guy. The other thing I love about 9-patch blocks is what you can do with them from a color perspective. So most of the time we think of them this way, with dark, sort of a dark X and a lighter plus. But as you can see in this one, the middle has a different color family. So these are turquoise in the corners, creams, and then this one has a dark brown in the middle. Primarily I do scrappy quilts. So I do lots of these. So if you've been around a little while, you've seen these. These are all made from leftovers, basically. So 2.5 inch strips that I cut into 2.5 inch squares. A few of these I will have made as kind of a strip set. Like if you look at this one here and this one here, you can tell, actually, no, they're not. This one and this one must have been in a quilt that had this or this one, but not necessarily. So they're a great way to use up scraps. They're a great way to extend your stash, and they're just a great base block. Now, you'll see lots and lots of quilts on the market that use this shape, this, 9-patch for lots of different reasons. In small ones where you end up with tons and tons of them, in situations where you add borders or do different finishing techniques. And we're going to talk about some of those things that you can do when you need to make them bigger. The easiest way to make them bigger or to change their size is to just, whatever size you pick to be the square, all 9 pieces are that size. It doesn't really matter what size you pick. If you want to do all the way down to 1 inch to start with, which will finish at 1.5 inches, the entire block will finish at 1.5. And I've seen these all the way up to, each one of these blocks being a 12 by 12. It's just a great block for options. You also can change the value around, which I don't have any in the studio that are that way, but you can very easily turn this into putting the darks where these lights are and the lights where the darks are, and you get a totally different look, which can be really fun. So this is the block for this week. I have made, I don't know, I think I have about 12 here. For this series, we're going to do a range of different blocks. We're going to do 6-inch, 9-inch, 12-inch, and 18-inch blocks. In the end, we'll mix them all together to make a quilt. But for this one specifically, we're just doing a 6-inch block. So 6.5 before you put it in the quilt, but it will be 6-inch finished in the quilt. So, and as you can see, as per usual, blue and white is my color of choice. So I just used a bunch of different whites or even creams. These are all from my neutral drawer. And then blues, from everything from my bright turquoise. This one's almost purple. Got light blues, baby blues, some gray in the neutrals. So really just have fun with it. I made 12 blocks. They're actually going to be part of the border in the end. We will be using these again as the center for a few of the other blocks a little later in the series. I don't know how long the series is going to go. I have mapped out about a year's worth of blocks, so each one different. However, we're just really gonna have to see how far it goes, how big my quilt gets before I make it. I haven't planned the whole quilt first. So in terms of what the general plan is, every week I'm gonna introduce a new block. And once a month I'll take, there should be either 4 or 5 blocks in each month, depending on how many Wednesdays there are. And on the last Friday of every month, we're going to use at least 2 of the blocks to make a crib size quilt as part of a charity project that I am part of. So I don't know which one we're going to do. I've kind of mapped out a couple different ones for this first month. There are 4 blocks in August, and there'll be 1 baby quilt that will release the last Friday of August. But for now, make a few 9 patches, and we'll make a few baby quilts for charity. All right, I will see you I'll see you tomorrow for a regular video, but I'll see you next Wednesday for block 2, episode 2 of this series. All right, signing off for tonight. Have a great night. I'll see you later.